Annalise, thank you. Let's get some thoughts now from Liberal Senator, former ambassador to Israel, Dave Sharma. Dave, what did you make of the announcement from Donald Trump?
Well, I think his fundamental analysis is a correct one, which is that trying and repeating what we have done in the past should not guide our future actions. I mean, there have been 5 conflicts, 5 wars between Israel and Hamas since Hamas took over governance in Gaza. And I think Trump wants to break that cycle of violence and give the Palestinian people a better future and a better hope and allow the Israeli people to live in security. And I don't think it's bad for him to put some of the onus of responsibility for resolving this conflict on the Arab world and the Palestinian political leadership.
Is that what you think this is?
Well, I think with Donald Trump...
Is this a negotiating tactic or is it legit? Will we have a US-owned and run Gaza Strip?
Well, I think we would need to see the details, but I think, something that Donald Trump's staff often say about him is take him seriously, but don't take him literally. And I think he has demonstrated a seriousness of intent, if you like, to grapple with and seek to resolve this problem. But quite how that's done and the details, I don't think we should necessarily take today as the final script.
So do you think the Prime Minister was right to just reiterate what Australia's position is and say he's not going to provide running commentary?
Well, look, I didn't see how the Prime Minister responded to this. I'd say...
Well, he said he's not going to provide a running commentary on the statements from the President. Is that the right move, given we don't know how much of this is going to translate into real action in terms of US-owned Gaza Strip? Yeah. That sounds, as a headline, that's quite extraordinary, isn't it?
I think the way for Australia to approach this issue is the way we approach any issue. Through our own national interests, we make our own policy, we make our own decisions. Of course, they should be guided and informed by the actions of our major partners and allies, especially a country as influential as the United States. But I would say it's certainly too soon to be saying Australia should be shifting our own policy in response to what has been announced over.
It would be an earthquake if we were to have a US-owned and run Gaza Strip, wouldn't it, in terms of the regional response?
It would certainly be a significant change. But, as I said, I think people have, and rightly and understandably, people in the media have focused on that particular element of what he said in his press conference. But I think the other elements that he sought to address, the desire to ensure the cycle of violence is broken, the desire to ensure Hamas is eliminated, the desire to give the Palestinian people a better future, and the requirement for the Arab world to play a more forward-leaning role in resolving this conflict. I think they were equally important elements of what he said.
But he didn't make any reference to a pathway to Palestinian sovereignty or statehood.
Well, he talked about expanding and growing the Abraham Accords, and of course, the gold prize there is Israel-Saudi normalisation. Of course, in Trump's first term, we got 4 normalisation agreements with Morocco, Bahrain, Sudan and the UAE. And people see that as the linchpin of a broader Arab-Israeli peace. Now, I think a broader Arab-Israeli peace would provide the Palestinian people a better future. What sort of territorial, and state-like configuration that takes would need to be negotiated and resolved. But I think he had that.
Won't he be criticised along the same lines that Putin was for Ukraine if he were to go in and take ownership of Gaza, when the Palestinians have campaigned for not just decades, for a lot longer than that, for their own sovereignty?
Well, I mean, firstly, my own view is the Palestinian people have a right to self-determination in their own land, and it has always been envisaged since the time of the first UN partition plan in the 1940s that Gaza and the West Bank would form the basis of a future Palestinian state. Now, I'm opposed to any state unilaterally going and acquiring the territory of another. I don't know if that's necessarily what Donald Trump has in mind here, though.
It seemed to be what he suggested, though. Is this part of the literals versus serious thing?
But we've seen comments like this about Greenland. We've seen comments like this about Panama. It seems to be the basis or the starting point for a subsequent negotiation, which is about securing US interests.
Dave Sharma, thanks.
Thank you, Kieran.